Welcome to our multi-platform in-person and love stream service of the River of Grass Unitarian Universalist Congregations, where we have gathered partly in person here and in this room together, and partly online through Zoom and Facebook Live, in order to keep us all both connected and safe as the COVID-19 pandemic transitions to endemic status. No, it's not over. In fact, today we are masking indoors as recommended by the CDC, as our community risk level is now high. Our speakers have tested negative to unmask for today's service. Even so, here we are, still together, continuing to go and grow and flow the riverway. My name is Sergio Bustos, and my pronouns are he and him. You here in this room, we welcome you. You on Zoom and Facebook Live, we welcome you as well. However you've made your way among us this morning, we welcome you. Let us pause together to enter into this time together as we connect again with one another, with the holy by any name and the light of love within us all. While we remain mindful that not everyone can breathe easy, nor find it easy to breathe, let us pause here in the headlong rush of our lives to breathe into our time together. In this congregation, it is our mission to nurture our spirits, love intentionally, and create a just and healthy planet. In our enduring search for truth, meaning, and faith, what we share here is not an unchanging dogma, but an affirmation that we are called to be agents of love and justice, and to build a world where everyone is cherished for who they are.
On this, our third Sunday, exploring what it means to find our center, we invite you to bring all that you are with these words of my colleague, the Reverend Erica Hewitt. As we enter into worship, put away the pressures of the world that ask us to perform, to put on brave fronts. Silence the voices that ask you to be perfect. This is a community of compassion and welcome. You do not have to do anything to earn the love within these walls. You do not have to be braver, smarter, stronger, better than you are in this moment to belong here with us. You only have to bring the gift of your body, no matter how able, your seeking mind and yourself, no matter how busy, your animal heart, no matter how broken. Bring all that you are and all that you love to this hour together. Come. We are gathered. Let us worship. As we must continue to mask indoors with our COVID risk rating still at high, we ask you to please hum, or you may also what we do called humbling. We hum and mumble into our masks because we sometimes cannot resist knowing these words. Our January theme hymn is a beloved hymn from our Unitarian Universalist tradition, Spirit of Life. We will be singing it this morning in both English and Spanish. Please rise as you are willing, in body or in spirit. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántele tu compasión. Soplar, volar, sube en la mar hasta mollar la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
The flaming chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, a beacon of religious liberty shining through generations now, ours to hold high. As we light our chalice together this morning, please say these words. We light this chalice for the love that holds us, for the light that leads us, for the hope that calls us on. In the light of love, let us renew our covenant as we say together, love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta congregación y el servicio su ley principal. Esta es nuestra gran promesa, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad a través del amor y ayudarnos mutuamente.
This morning, as we continue our series on bending the arc of the universe towards justice in our time, we are focused on the interconnections of us all, not just here in the room, but outside the walls, into this community, in this city, in this state, in this nation, in this world. And so we're going to sing this morning two different hymns that are set to the same music. This is an old tradition of moving words around to music that people know. So we're going to begin with a beloved hymn, also known as Finlandia. This is my song. And in this song, we petition the holy by any name to not only grant us peace and blessing, but to grant it for all those around the world, realizing we're not the only ones here. Please rise in body or in spirit. This is my song, O God of all the nations, my song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for that land and for mine. A song of peace for that land and for mine.
In our community each week, we share pieces of our lives. This too takes a new form for our new normal. We take a moment here with people who love us for exactly who we are, where we are right now. Here in the room, we will share from the book. If you're in Zoom and would like to share a thought, a prayer, a joy, or concern with us in this moment, we will open our chat space now, write it there, and we will lift them up together. As William James wrote, we are like islands in the sea, separate on the surface, but connected in the deep. Let us share a moment of silent reflection, connecting us to all who are in need.
Source of all, called by many names throughout the ages, none of which we have ever known nor can ever fully understand, we bring these things written and unwritten, spoken and unspoken, for we know our hearts carry those things beyond words. We ask that we become seers of hearts, even as we learn to allow our own hearts to be seen. We are grateful for these things entrusted to us in this community. For we know the power of community can lift our burdens and make them lighter, and expand our joys and make them brighter. We're mindful of the trouble in the world this morning. For those who are afraid, those who are assaulted, those who are living in war or in warlike states in the very streets of their own neighborhoods and beyond. We know that trouble has been with us, that our ancestors also labored in the fight for justice and love and peace, and that this is our time and our turn to bend the arc of justice a little closer in our time. As Howard Thurman charged us, we have no right to sit down nor give up. We ask for grace when we forget those things we should do or do those things we should not. We ask for gentleness and kindness in our words. We ask for love that is both tender and fierce and unafraid to stand in the face of the hatred that besieges us. And we also know that this life and this world is full of beauty and kindness and gentleness and the treasure of the things that we give and do for and with one another. We're grateful for this community where we can bring all these things, and we lift them together in the name of all that is holy. Amen, amen, amin, aho, namaste, blessed be, and so it is.
We sustain and strengthen this beloved community in its work in our world through the gifts of our time, our skills, our love, and our money. Each Sunday, half of our undesignated offerings go to LifeNet for Families, which provides meals, clothing, and support for those in need here in Broward County. The other half supports our mission and ministry at River of Grass. Ushers, please come forward to receive the offering. Scan the QR code or text the number on the screen to donate. You can also find several ways to give on the donate page on our website at riverofgrassuu.org. Thank you for these generous gifts.
Okay, youngins. We have options this morning. We have this rug right here where you can come and sit because we are going to watch a very special wisdom story that was a gift to us from our Side with Love campaign. You can also sit there. It's up to you. All right. So this morning, our worldwide Side with Love campaign launches its 30 Days of Love, which we do annually. Congregations all over the world this morning are sharing in materials, stories, meditations, prayers, reflections that our Side with Love campaign has created for us for these 30 Days of Love. Now, this 30 Days of Love is based on the interconnectedness, the interdependence of us all in the world, and explores this as a root of our justice work, especially in the realm of democracy and electoral justice. We're going to be exploring that all morning. So, this wisdom story is a very special gift that came to us from the UUA board member Jacaren Olaoya, and it's entitled Lila Votes for the First Time. Let's watch and listen.
Lila votes for the first time. Lila waited patiently as she could as she stood in line with her mother. It was hot and standing still felt so hard to do. Before they got out of the car, Mom turned to her and said, "Lila, I need you to be on your best behavior. This is important, and we will stay in line for as long as it takes. Are you ready?" "Yes, Mama Pam," shouted Lila as she unbuckled her seatbelt. Standing in line was hard. Lila tried standing on one leg, then the other. She tried sitting on the grass, but then she accidentally put her hand in an ant bed, and she was afraid of bugs. Lila wanted to complain, but when she looked up at her mom, she saw her serious face and remembered when she was told that this was very important. Instead, she decided to ask a question. "Mom, why are we here?" Lila's mom looked down and said, "We are here to vote in the election. It's the process where all adults share their opinions on who is the best person to represent them and make laws that benefit them." "All adults get a say in making laws?" "Well, almost all adults. There are rules and restrictions, but for the most part, yes." "Do they all stand in line like us?" "A good portion of people do. Some people can vote early in person or by mail. There are many different options to follow." So how do you know who you're voting for?" "Well, the candidates are known ahead of time. You know how Mama Kate mutes the TV during the commercials? Well, it's usually when a candidate is promoting themselves to get people to vote for them. You can also request a sandbit ballot and read up on whatever you're voting on and make sure that you know your decisions ahead of time." She pulls out a folded set of papers and leans down for Lila to see. "I've marked each one of my votes here, and when it's time for me to go into the voting booth, I will have a reminder of the research I did on my own." "Mom, you can't have the answers. You have to remember, like when I have to take a test at school." Mom laughed and said, "It's a little different from school tests. No one is grading my work, and I'm free to bring notes, I promise." "Well, what happens if people stop voting?" "Well, if people stop voting, then the process doesn't work. We won't have representatives, and making decisions will be a lot harder." "Could I be a representative one day?" "Absolutely, Lila. You can be anything you want to be." Lila thought for a moment before asking, "So what happens when you vote for someone and they don't win?" "Well, sweetheart, that can happen. We don't always get what we want or need. Do you remember when you were 5 years old and you wanted a baby goat? Our apartment is not nearly big enough for a baby goat, so your mom and I said no. Do you remember what happened?" Lila paused. "Well, I cried just a little, but then I asked for a stuffed goat and we found one at the toy store. George the goat is still my favorite." "Yes, well, your choice of candidate losing is kind of like that. Sometimes you're so disappointed you cry. Sometimes you find a compromise and it works out okay. Or you work harder to make sure more people learn about your candidate. No matter what happens, we're always our best selves, win or lose." By the time Lila had asked her last question, they were inside the building, waiting for a booth to open up. A nice smiling lady wearing a poll worker badge came up to Mama Pam while they were waiting in line. "We have a special polling section for children to learn more about voting. Would you like your daughter to participate? Mama Pam looked down at Lila, who was begging with her eyes to let her go. Mama Pam laughed. Sure, be on your best behavior, Lila. Lila grabbed the poll worker's outstretched hand and allowed her to lead her to the center of the polling center, where a small voting booth was set up that were exactly the right size for Lila. The poll worker explained each step to Lila as she voted between types of breakfast cereal, places to go on vacation, and her favorite animal, goats, of course. When Lila was done, she said, "Wow, that was really hard work." The poll worker agreed with a knowing smile and allowed Lila to pick a "I voted" sticker. When she turned around, Mama Pam was waiting for her. She smiled brightly when she saw her mom was wearing the same sticker. She paused for a moment, her excitement slowing down. Mom, why isn't Mama Kate voting with us? Well, Lila, remember when I said there were some rules that prevented adults from voting? Well, Mama Kate is not a citizen of this country, and she is not allowed to vote until she becomes one. We hope she will be a full citizen by next year, and she will be able to vote with us then. Lila's excitement returned. Yay! I can't wait to teach Mama Kate everything I learned about voting today. Remember when I said there were some rules that prevented adults?
Always giving us more to think about. Thank you. Let's sing our youngins off to their classes. We love you and bless you and send you on your way. We love you and bless you today and every day. We are returning to the familiar hymn tune called Finlandia, that we know as Finlandia, that we sang as This Is My Song earlier. I'm going to invite you to remain seated and take this into your hearts in a different way. This is our Unitarian Universalist version of that hymn called We Would Be One. And if anybody should ever ask you what's Rev Amy's favorite hymn, this is the one. We would be one. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high call of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which begs our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice strive to make us And when we say with love and justice strive to make us free, we mean all people. Sometimes we mistakenly sing to make us free when we sing to make us free. In our interdependence, our interconnectedness, and if we have not learned what that is across the last 2 or 3 years, when we were so often stuck in our homes but still connected with one another and finding ways to connect with our families, our friends, our loved ones, in spite of it all, and yearning for that connection, that's where the heart of it is. We were not made to be alone. We were made to be in community. Each year in the months of January and February at River of Grass, we do a series called Bending the Arc. And during this series, we look anew at our responsibilities to bend the arc of the universe towards justice a little more in our time. Also at this time of year comes our Side with Love 30 Days of Love campaign. And we share in it with congregations across the world. So I just love knowing that all over the world there are people sharing in materials and ideas and thoughts and reflections that have been shared across this world. We are not only us here in these walls, we are also interconnected and interdependent with the greater movement of Unitarian Universalism across the world. The 30 Days of Love this year focuses on our interdependence on one another. And this, we not only learn to long for it and yearn for it while we were isolated and coming through this pandemic, we also found out that once we started coming out the other side, we kind of have to rehab being together because we kind of forgot how that feels. A meme was going around one of the social media a couple of weeks ago that said, you know, I really like to go out, but it's all people-y out there. And we kind of got into that, right? Because we lived in a place that we were sometimes afraid, we didn't know what was going on, and we didn't know how other people were also going to behave and how they were taking precautions or not, or how it was going to be with people. First time I was out socially again coming out the other side of COVID, I was tired in 30 minutes because I'm not used to it. Our General Assembly last year was also fully online as well as in person. And colleagues would post in our private colleague chats how grateful they were that the online was available all the time because it just took one day for them to be peopled out in a convention hall full of folks. She said, I love you all. I couldn't wait to see you, and I'm going to stay in my room today. So we have to relearn how to do this interconnectedness that we yearn for. Even as we reinforced it spiritually, we have to learn how to do it again in community. Now, this morning, the 30 Days of Love asks us to look at how that interconnectedness works in electoral justice, how democracy works, and how that is part of this interconnectedness in this work of justice and love. That we affirm in electoral justice because it's one way that we take action when our world needs changing or people who are vulnerable need protecting. In our congregations, in our communities, and in our institutions, in our governments. And what more important time to think about that than right now, when we are witnessing democracy all over the world teetering on the brink of destruction. By many means, and not least, voter suppression. Last year, for the midterms, we saw 26 states enact dozens of new voter restriction bills. And right now, more voter restriction bills are working their way through legislations of 20 more states, not least right here in Florida. And so we might ask, well, what does that have to do with Unitarian Universalist faith to begin with? What does that have to do with siding with love? Since when do we talk about voting in church? Well, the Reverend Ashley Horan, who is the organizing strategy director for our Side with Love campaign, summarizes it this way: Unitarian Universalist values inextricably link the democratic method with a fundamental belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all humans. So if we believe that all people are born whole and loved rather than sinful and depraved, then we must create societies in which every person is equally empowered to determine, as a part of the collective, what is best for all. And all this because we are so inextricably linked to one another and to this earth and all living beings in this interdependence, which is our seventh principle. That means that when the privileged few, under our systems of capitalism, white supremacy, cis-heterosexism, ableism, and anthropocentrism, that is to say, only humans matter, and what's more, only white humans matter, and what's more, only white, generally male humans matter, and what's more, only white, generally male, and wealthy humans matter, under our current systems, when those forces conspire, they make decisions only in their own interest and in no one else's to preserve wealth and power. The results are exploitation, abuse, violence, domination, and destruction of everyone except the powerful and privileged. And so it is incumbent upon us, especially if we do carry some power and privilege, to use that for the good of all, to act in every way possible, to draw those from the margins into the center, to work toward liberation for all people. And one way we do that is the electoral process, and making our lives count by getting counted, and making sure everybody else gets counted too. And we get tired. And sometimes we want to just throw our hands up, tempted to think sometimes that maybe it doesn't really matter. Especially when the lines get long and it gets harder. But my beloved colleague, the Reverend Duncan Teague, reminds us of what can happen when we rise up at the ballot box and side with love. The Reverend Duncan Teague.
I hope that this time that we're about to share is a time when you are feeling loved and appreciated, especially by your community, by your faith community, whatever that is, and by your family, however you've defined that, and maybe even by someone special or some people who are special to you. I'm Reverend Duncan Teague. I'm the minister at Abundant Love Unitarian Universalist Congregation right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I want to share about how I believe strongly in the power of our electoral and democratic participation as an affirmation of our love. I will bet that with an opening like that, many of you anticipate that I'm going to be talking about our possible or potential love of our country, or maybe even our liberal patriotism, which I could talk about. But we're acknowledging love at this time of year, I think, because of the power and influence of romantic love. And in this context, the right of adults to have love like that in our lives. As a gay man born long before our society was ready to embrace my relationships and my marriage, I remember believing that I deserved and I wanted the right to marry. And I had a strong desire to do so. I also remember believing from that time when I came out as a teenager in the 70s that I would have to live without the blessing of my community, nor or the legal rights held by heterosexual married couples. I knew that there were a few faiths where you had the choice of being joined spiritually or philosophically in a commitment ceremony that not one state in our nation would acknowledge or recognize. The Unitarian Universalists are proud that we offered that kind of spiritual and community support without the benefits of what other citizens got. I am proud that we offered that commitment to people, recognizing their love, even though the state didn't. It was our power as citizens to vote, to speak out, and to consider changing our hearts about marriage and the fairness of marriage equality that allowed the idea of same-sex marriage to become a legal right. I want to recognize and appreciate the vision and the leadership of Evan Wolfson, who in the earliest days, almost single-handedly, pushed and organized for this right. Wolfson started a movement that some in the queer community thought would maybe happen someday. And I'll have to admit, I was one of them, but certainly not in our lifetime. It is this time of year when the political and the heart work of thousands of people who joined in the movement and the power of the hard work of people who were going literally door to door at times, even though some queer identified people didn't believe that we deserved this for ourselves, the responsibility or the right. Our UU commitment comes to mind about recognizing love and putting that love to work in our flawed, but at times impressive political system. When a few states actually supported marriage equality at the ballot box and changed their restrictions on marriage, the Supreme Court of 2015 saw that it could logically conclude lesbian, gay, transgender, and queer individuals were already in long-term stable relationships and deserved the legal right to marry. The state should not interfere in that love and deny those relationships should folks desire to marry. We have had to defend this position recently and may again in the future. This Supreme Court majority opinion would succeed and did if challenged in electoral politics. The heart votes are there now. I was blessed to be at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly when the decision became public. And my Canadian wedding became legal in that moment. Ironically, that very day, I flew to go to Utah for a wedding of my nephew, where he and his bride also celebrated the decision about our wedding. We all won. Please let your heart continue to lead your feet to the ballot box, to the polls, to the rallies that will set us all free.
I was there too, at General Assembly when that announcement came down. You ain't heard nothing till you've heard 5,000 Unitarian Universalists rejoicing so loud and so long, it stalled the program out for a long time that day. I had also been there on the courthouse steps in Miami when the decision had come down in Florida, because we were working through it state by state by state by state until we could get it national. Standing there on those steps, an attorney that was involved in all of it saw me and hollered out, "Hey, Rev, you here to marry folks?" And I said, "Yes, I am," and we did. And more recently, we were there when You the Vote campaigns came to Florida to help us pass Amendment 4 to restore voting rights to returning felons. Now that's gotten all messed up and we're working on that again. But we did that. You the Vote turns out at every election. You the Vote turned out the last election, 2 elections, to vote to block absolute abortion bans and to stop policies that make it illegal to feed the hungry on our streets right here in Broward County. We showed up at the border. Did you know that a UU activist went to jail and then to trial for leaving water in the desert for immigrants? So yes, my beloved, showing up matters. Being counted matters. Being counted on the side of love and making sure all of that counts matters. For we have seen the arc of the universe bend a little more toward justice with our own eyes, in our own time, as a result of our own labors of love. And as a result of refusing to give up, transforming ourselves one step, one vote at a time. The Reverend Horan charges us, true democracy is both a spiritual and political practice of honoring our interconnectedness by collectively and courageously fighting for a world in which all of us are free and flourishing. May we take up this charge. Of all states, this one. May we take up this charge to side with love, with grace, and with grit, with humility and with joy. And let us begin by taking into our hearts this prayer by my beloved colleague, the Reverend Wendy Bartell.
Spirit of life and justice, we live in deeply challenging times. There are forces seeking to silence the people, to prevent them from using their voice, voting their conscience, and shaping a more compassionate and just future. There are efforts to disempower, misinform, and discourage voters, to remove them from the voting rolls with no notice and for no good reason. Presence of love, give us courage that we counter those negative forces with not only our vote, but with our hearts and minds and bodies to protect one another's hard-earned right to vote. Even if we do not plan to vote the same way, our democracy is stronger for participation. Guide our efforts to elect people at every level of leadership within and beyond our congregations, communities, counties, countries, who want for the flourishing of all beings. And then help us sustain our own engagement in strengthening governance, that our policies and practices, our laws and enforcement of them be grounded in covenant and conscience. The geese call. Here we go. Carry on. We've got this. Announcing our place as we go on and risk. Listening from one knee or our seat humbly. We vow to live in harmony with the earth, the waters, and every tree. They breathe. We breathe. That's how it's meant to be. And in breathing, we find healing, living, loving, free. Essence of interdependence teach us, yes, again, please. We seem to keep forgetting that we're all connected. We seem to keep letting politicians leave our democracy neglected, voters dejected and subjected to racism and oppression. Disinformation has some disconnected from the truth of fair elections. I want to see all families reflected when we say, we the people. All families. May we work in partnership with all that is to make it so. Amen. Ashe. Namaste. And blessed be.
Let us rise in body or in spirit to sing together one more step. One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. Please be seated as we consider the life of this congregation and the opportunities before us in the days to come.
This year's mid-year congregational meeting is rather important. We will be updating members on what is happening within our beloved community, and we will have some important congregational votes during this meeting requiring a quorum. In addition, there will be a Capital Foundation member meeting following the River meeting to discuss several proposed changes. For those on Zoom, the link for the meeting is in the chat, or find it in the weekly email. If you need the link, email Kathy Jens Rochelle at president@riverofgrassuu.org. And number 4, the 5th Sunday is second helping. What's happening to our principles and sources? We love our UU principles, we love our sources, and they evolve as we do, which is why our UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, Article 2 bylaws require that we, as a movement, review, re-examine, and if discerned, revise them at least every 20 years. And so it is that the Article 2 Study Commission of the UUA has undertaken a multi-year study process and just published their report and recommendations. Here at River of Grass, we'll begin our own study as our 5th Sunday Second Helping discussion group next Sunday, January 29th, after service. Come evolve with us.
As he charged us, let us continue to show up at the polls, the ballot boxes, and to make sure others can do the same, that our voices be heard, that we may all get free together. We're going to have some hospitality downstairs. It's another lovely floor today. Don't tell anyone who doesn't already live here. I'll see you down there. Let us keep before our eyes the vision of a world transformed and be ready to transform ourselves to make it so. Until we meet again, shine on.